Where do I begin? There's so many emotions to unpack, but I hope that I'm able to bury them, bury my anger. Today, me and my husband and my children were able to bury my mother-in-law. It was a very beautiful ceremony. We had a Catholic priest come and carry out his service, and there were surprisingly people that showed up. Even the young French girl that my mother-in-law befriended somewhere in southern Germany. She came and surprised us and paid her respects for my mother-in-law. My husband had spent the past 2 weeks since the day that my mother-in-law passed to set up her funeral arrangements, to find the perfect colors and the perfect flowers and everything that she would have wanted for her burial. He even made sure that she was buried with her son. Even after all the conning of government funds and things that she hid from us, criminal activities and falsifying information, using people's identities or using false identities to con people for money and the government. Even after all that and her evading being arrested and paying for her crimes and being held accountable, my husband made it happen and buried her with her son. Her ego may have won, but she lost her other son. She lost one of her sons in her physical life, and she lost my husband in this life. Last Friday was a very challenging time for me. I was just filled with rage. It was hard watching my husband go before the courthouse in Germany to basically deny the inheritance of his mother because we knew she was in debt. I mean, the government officials and the justice system were seeking her out. She lied. She had false identities. She stole money. She left. She never paid bills and whatever monies that she owed. And she was able to live a comfortable life without even being held accountable. Says a lot about the German system. But it was really hard for me to watch my husband basically tell the administrator at the courthouse that he found boxes of false identities and debt collections and documents and false documents, false identities at his mother's house. To me, that's like the most embarrassing thing you could do as a mother. To die and then have your son explain on your behalf why you fucked up and why you lied and why you lived a false life. Why I was so angry at her. No son should have to go through having to explain to different agencies and authorities of their parents' like wrongdoings, of their misbehaviors and their lies. Like, why did my husband have to do this? She was selfish. She was egoistic. And I told myself that today I would not cry. I didn't want to cry. I was angry. But as the priest started with his sermons and playing music, tears just rolled down my eyes. Just watching my husband and my children sit before her urn. I just cannot imagine what a son must feel. You know, he did everything he could for his mother. He loved his mother, even though she was not perfect. He tried giving her a chance, and she failed miserably. Women just don't realize the power that they have over their children. I know divorce is not pretty. When you're going through a divorce, there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of animosity, and there's a lot of revenge and resentment. But the children shouldn't have to suffer from it. They suffer from it, and they carry that with them. I saw my therapist yesterday, and we were talking about just the emotions that I felt during the time that we went to the courthouse to deny the inheritance for my children and for my hubby, and also just the lies, the boxes full of documents, false documents and false identities that she carried with her. She even stole a pack of cigarettes at the age of 50. This was not long ago. This was like 18 years ago. Like, I just can't fathom, like, why my children had to have some shitty ass grandmas. Both maternal grandmas are trash. And I'm saying it with my chest out. My mother is trash. That'll be a different story for another time. But my mother-in-law, a person that I opened up to and tried my best to just build a relationship and try to build that relationship, you know, between her and my hubby. Like, I cried. I did love her. I hated her at the same time, but I did love her. And I realized that she was human. I know that she was molested as a child by her father. She opened up and told me about that. And as a mother myself, I just can't understand why women would hurt their own children or treat them a certain way. And my mother-in-law treated my husband like property, which was sickening to watch, even to the very end. He didn't deserve that. When I talked to my therapist about her, I was telling him about how there was a reel on Instagram that talked, or that basically asked the community if you could pick your mom, and this was in honor of Mother's Day. If you could pick your mom again, would you pick her? And I asked my husband that. And even though he suffered lies and deceit and various types of abuses, from mental abuses from his mother, he said he wouldn't change a thing in the world. His mother was his grandmother. And I love that lady. His grandmother just had that vibration, that energy, that smile. Her smile said it all. It was very warm and welcoming and maternal. His mother's expression was just, she had a rough life. But he said he wouldn't change anything because at the end of the day, his mother was his Oma. And if it wasn't for all these challenges, he wouldn't be the person that he was. And I respected his response. That's my husband's life. That's my husband's view and experience, and that's how he felt. But I told my therapist I disagreed. Because on the one hand, yes, it made him who he was. But on the other hand, his brother died at the age of 24. And that was when she had the power of attorney over him, over his affairs, because he was fully disabled. He wasn't mentally disabled. He was just physically disabled. But he couldn't function and needed assistance. And my mother-in-law took advantage of her son's situation, her disabled son's situation. And even after my mother-in-law and my father-in-law divorced, she had full custody of my brother-in-law. And he was only 14 at the time. But she abused her power over her son. And I think that's why she treated my husband a certain way. She was always irritated around my husband. She always felt that my husband never paid enough attention to her. She wasn't the center of his world. She neglected her. It was all power tripping because she had no control over her son. And he followed his intuition. And sure enough, there was a reason why he kept his distance from his mother. I tried bringing them together. In my mind, thinking, oh, in my culture, in my upbringing, you honor your parents or you respect the elders and all this. But I didn't know that she was an abusive, controlling mother. She had issues. And sadly, it seems to run in her side of the family. I just shared this story with you because to me it's just painful. My husband never really expresses his emotions. He's a manly man, typically. He's been that way. I guess the Germans, in the German culture, the men don't show emotions. But during this period that we've been dealing with her hospice and palliative care and her burial, it's been an emotional roller coaster ride. And he didn't deserve any of it. And I'm angered by it. But I'm also trying to bury this. I just feel like a lot of these boomer generation, these older generation, they've gone through some rough upbringings with their parents. Their parents failed them in some way. And it is our responsibility, our current generations, to make sure that our children and the future grandchildren and the great-grandchildren don't have to suffer because of whatever mistakes, whatever crimes, whatever resentments, pains, whatever things, events have happened in the past. The children shouldn't have to suffer. And it's really sad. My husband, we were talking about how he feels now, like, if he feels relief now that we finally were able to bury her. And he told me it's like the way he described it, it's like he didn't get the ending that he was hoping for. It's like he tried to make sure that everything was perfect in some way, but he didn't get the closure that he was hoping for with his mom. He'll never get it. But with that, though, we're letting it go. We're letting her go. And I made sure I told my children today what their grandma was doing, the lies and the deceit, because there's no way I will allow my children to repeat that cycle. And I just hope that our current generation doesn't repeat that cycle. No one deserves to be lied to. No one deserves to be controlled or used as an object. With this, I'm ending this story, but I will share more in the future. Thank you for listening.